The first thing you need to know about my wife Maribel is that she thinks airport mechanics are beneath her artistic vision. The second thing is that she's been screwing a 28-year-old musician named Ty Dalton for the past 6 months, while I've been fixing jet engines and paying our mortgage. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Grant Hensley, 45 years old, and I can rebuild a turbofan engine blindfolded, but apparently I can't keep my wife interested enough to stay faithful. Go figure. The discovery came on a Tuesday, naturally. Tuesdays are when everything goes to hell in my experience. I was supposed to be working late on a Boeing 737 that had been making concerning noises, but the part we needed didn't arrive, so I headed home early. That's when I found Maribel's laptop open on the kitchen counter, displaying what she called her artistic portfolio. Artistic, my ass. The photos were time-stamped from her last 3 creative retreats, intimate shots of her and this Thai character at some lakeside cabin, looking very much like they were creating something, but it sure wasn't art suitable for public display. The metadata showed dates when she'd told me she was attending photography workshops in Chicago. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling like I'd just watched a perfectly good aircraft engine seize up and fade. 22 years of marriage, reduced to lies and digital evidence of infidelity. My phone buzzed. Frank Morrison, my buddy from the airport, texting, "Saw your missus at Murphy's bar last night. She was real cozy with some young guy with a guitar case. Thought you should know." Too late, Frank, but I appreciated the heads up. I closed the laptop and cracked open a beer. The house felt different now, bigger, emptier, like someone had removed all the insulation and left just the frame. I could hear the neighbor's dog barking, the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the wall clock Maribel's mother had given us for our 10th anniversary. Sounds I'd never noticed before because I'd always been listening for Maribel's voice, her footsteps, her presence. Now, I was listening to absence. When she came home at midnight, reeking of cigarettes and cheap wine, I was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open between us. "We need to talk," I said. She froze in the doorway, her artistic eye no doubt taking in the composition. Betrayed husband, evidence of adultery, the harsh fluorescent lighting that made her look older than her 43 years. "Grant, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. You're very creative." She moved toward me, hands outstretched like she was approaching a dangerous animal. "It's not what you think." "Really?" "Because I think you've been lying to me for months while you play house with some kid who probably can't even tune his own guitar, let alone support himself." Her face flushed. "Ty is an artist. He understands things about life that you never could. Like how to live rent-free while someone else pays the bills. You don't understand. I need space to grow, to explore who I really am." I stood up slowly, the way I do when I'm working on a delicate engine component that could explode if handled wrong. "You want space, Maribel? I'll give you all the space you need." She blinked, probably expecting tears or rage or pleas for reconciliation. Instead, I walked past her to the hallway closet and pulled out her largest suitcase. "What are you doing?" "Giving you what you want. Space." I carried the suitcase to our bedroom and started filling it with her clothes. She followed, protesting, but I kept packing with the methodical precision I used for aircraft maintenance. Every item had its place. Every action had a purpose. "Grant, stop. We can work this out." "Can we?" "Because from where I'm standing, you already worked it out. You chose him." "I chose possibility. I chose passion." "You chose to cheat on your husband and lie about it for 6 months." She sat on the bed, finally crying. Real tears this time, not the artistic kind she probably used to manipulate her young musician. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "But it did happen this way. And now you get to live with the consequences." I zipped up the suitcase and set it by the bedroom door. You can come back for the rest of your things when I'm at work. I'll leave a key under the mat. Where am I supposed to go? I hear Ty's got a place, very bohemian according to Vicky. Her face went white. If Vicky knew, then half the neighborhood knew. Vicky couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it. This isn't over, Grant. I looked at her standing there in our bedroom, surrounded by 22 years of shared memories and broken promises, and felt something cold settle in my chest. You're right. It's not over. It's just getting started. Maribel moved in with Ty the next day, and for 14 months, I lived like a monk in a museum. Every morning I'd wake up in our king-size bed, make coffee for one, and drive to the airport where I fixed things that could actually be repaired. The house felt like a hotel where the maid service had been permanently discontinued. Dishes piled up because I only used one plate, one cup, one set of silverware. The living room stayed exactly as she'd left it. Magazines fanned out on the coffee table, throw pillows arranged just so, her reading glasses still sitting on the end table next to a book she'd never finish. I could have cleaned up, redecorated, made the place my own, but I didn't. I wanted to remember exactly how it looked when she walked out, because I had plans for that memory. Frank kept me updated on Maribel's new life through the neighborhood gossip network. Ty lived in a converted garage behind a house near downtown, the kind of place that charged extra for character when what you were really paying for was poor insulation and a landlord who didn't ask too many questions. She's paying his rent, Frank told me over beers at Murphy's bar. Vicky heard it straight from her cousin who works at the bank. Your ex is funding his music career. She's not my ex yet, I said. Technically, she's still my wife. You gonna file? Eventually, I'm not in a hurry. Frank gave me a look. You're planning something, aren't you? I'm planning to fix a Cessna engine tomorrow morning. Beyond that, I'm just taking things one day at a time. But Frank was right. I was planning something. Every night after work, I'd sit at my kitchen table with a legal pad and document everything. Dates, times, financial records, witness statements. I treated it like an aircraft investigation, methodical, thorough, and focused on finding the root cause of the failure. The root cause was simple. Maribel thought she could have everything she wanted without consequences. She wanted the security of our marriage and the excitement of her affair. She wanted me to pay the bills while Ty provided the thrills. She was about to learn that actions have consequences, and consequences compound over time. I changed all the locks on the house and updated every password on every account. I removed her from our joint credit cards and opened new ones in my name only. I updated my insurance beneficiaries and my will. I even changed my emergency contact at work from Maribel to my brother Al. Each change was small, legal, and completely within my rights as a betrayed spouse. But together, they added up to something bigger, a systematic dismantling of the life she thought she could come back to whenever she got tired of playing house with her musician. The best part was that she didn't notice. She was too busy living her authentic artistic life to pay attention to boring details like insurance policies and bank accounts. 3 months into her bohemian adventure, I started dating Nina Rodriguez, a nurse at the regional medical center. We met when I had to get a tetanus shot after cutting myself on a sharp piece of aircraft metal. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly honest about what she wanted from life. I don't do drama, she told me on our first date. I see enough of that at work. Good, I said. I'm all dramaed out. Nina knew about Maribel from the beginning. I didn't hide anything from her, including my plans for eventual revenge. She didn't try to talk me out of it or convince me to take the high road. Some people need to learn lessons the hard way, she said, and some people need to be the ones teaching those lessons. I kept our relationship quiet. Nina understood why. The longer Maribel thought I was sitting at home pining for her, the more confident she'd become. And confidence, in my experience, leads to carelessness. Sure enough, Maribel got careless. Vicky, who had appointed herself the neighborhood's unofficial intelligence network, reported that Ty was cheating on Maribel with a bartender from Murphy's. Maribel had found out and confronted him, leading to a screaming match in the parking lot behind his garage apartment that half the block had witnessed. She threw his guitar out the window, Vicky told me when I ran into her at the grocery store. Smashed it right on the pavement. Then she went back upstairs and they were going at it again 20 minutes later, if you know what I mean. I knew what she meant. Maribel had always confused drama with passion, chaos with excitement. She probably thought the fight made their relationship more authentic, more artistic. Meanwhile, I was building a case against her that would hold up in any court in the country. My phone buzzed while I was having dinner with Nina at her apartment. A text from Maribel. I miss you. Can we talk? I showed Nina the message. She raised an eyebrow. What are you going to say? Nothing. Radio silence is the most powerful response sometimes. Nina smiled. You're learning. I was learning. But more importantly, Maribel was about to start learning too. The doorbell rang on a Saturday morning while Nina and I were having coffee and reading the newspaper like an actual functional couple. I looked through the peephole and saw Maribel standing on my front porch, holding a suitcase and wearing the expression of someone who expected to be welcomed home with open arms. I opened the door but didn't step aside to let her in. Hello, Maribel. Grant. She looked past me into the house, probably noticing that I'd finally cleaned up and rearranged some furniture. I've been thinking about us, about our marriage. Have you? I made a mistake. I see that now. He's not what I thought he was. Shocking. She tried to push past me into the house, but I blocked her path. That's when Nina appeared in the hallway behind me, wearing my old flannel shirt and carrying her coffee mug. Everything okay, honey? Nina asked. Maribel's face went through several interesting color changes, pale white to bright red to an unhealthy shade of green. She looked like she'd just watched her favorite aircraft plummet from the sky. Who is this? She demanded. This is Nina, I said calmly. Nina, meet Maribel, my wife. Nina extended her hand with a professional smile. Nice to finally meet you. Grant's told me so much about you. Maribel ignored the handshake. Grant, we need to talk, privately. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of Nina. I'm your wife. Technically, yes. But you moved out 14 months ago to live with your boyfriend. You can't have it both ways, Maribel. She turned to Nina with fury in her eyes. You're breaking up a marriage. Nina laughed. Honey, you broke up your own marriage when you started sleeping with the guitar player. I'm just keeping Grant company while he decides what to do with the pieces. You don't understand our relationship. I understand that you abandoned your husband for a year and change, and now you're surprised that he moved on. That's not complex. That's just stupid. I had to admit, I was enjoying this. Maribel had always been the one with the cutting remarks, the artistic temperament, the ability to make me feel small with a few well-chosen words. Now she was getting a taste of her own medicine from someone who didn't care about her feelings or her artistic vision. Grant, please, I love you. I've always loved you. Funny way of showing it. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems. What problems? I thought you needed space to grow and explore who you really are. Did you figure it out? She looked down at her suitcase, then back up at me with tears in her eyes. I figured out that I belong with you. No, you figured out that Ty is a loser who can't support you. There's a difference. My phone rang. I pulled it out and saw Ty's name on the caller ID. Perfect timing. It's your boyfriend, I told Maribel, then answered the call. Ty, how's the music career going? Where's Maribel? He demanded. She owes me rent money. She's right here. Want to talk to her? I handed the phone to Maribel, who looked like she wanted to drop it in the nearest garbage disposal. What? She snapped into the phone. No, I'm not coming back right now, because I'm trying to save my marriage. She listened for a moment, then her face got red again. You spent it on what? Ty, that was my grocery money. Nina and I exchanged glances. This was better than cable television. Fine, Maribel shouted into the phone. Find your own rent money. She hung up and threw the phone back at me. Trouble in paradise? I asked. He's an idiot. A selfish, immature idiot. But I thought he was an artist who understood things about life that I never could. She had the grace to look embarrassed. I was wrong about a lot of things. Yes, you were. But the biggest thing you were wrong about was thinking you could come back here whenever you felt like it. I stepped back and started to close the door. Grant, wait! The locks have been changed, Maribel. Your key doesn't work anymore, just like everything else about this situation. Where am I supposed to go? Back to Ty's place, I imagine. Unless you want to call your mother. Her face went pale again. You didn't tell my mother about this, did you? I didn't have to. Vicky told her months ago. I closed the door and locked it. Through the peephole, I watched Maribel stand on the porch for several minutes, probably hoping I'd change my mind. Finally, she picked up her suitcase and walked to her car. Nina put her arm around my waist. How do you feel? Like I'd just completed the most satisfying engine repair of my career. But this was just the beginning. Maribel thought she could waltz back into my life after humiliating me for over a year. She was about to learn that some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And I was about to show her exactly how thorough an aircraft mechanic can be when he sets his mind to dismantling something completely. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when it involves someone who thought she was too good for small-town life. By Monday morning, half the neighborhood knew about Maribel's failed homecoming attempt, thanks to Vicky's network of gossips and social media enthusiasts. I was under the hood of a Piper Cherokee when Frank found me at the airport. Heard you had some excitement over the weekend, he said, handing me a wrench. Nothing I couldn't handle. Vicky's been telling everyone about your new girlfriend. Says she's a real firecracker. Nina doesn't take any nonsense. Good for you, man. About time you found someone who appreciates what you bring to the table. What I brought to the table was stability, loyalty, and the ability to fix things that were actually fixable. Maribel had taken those qualities for granted for 22 years. Now she was discovering what life looked like without them. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Al. Mom wants to know if you're bringing Nina to Sunday dinner. Also, she says Maribel's mother called her crying. What's that about? I texted back. Long story. Yes, to Nina. No to drama. But drama was exactly what Maribel was creating everywhere she went. According to Vicky's intelligence network, she'd moved back in with Ty after our doorstep confrontation, but their relationship was deteriorating rapidly. He'd spent her rent money on new guitar equipment, then had the nerve to ask her to pick up extra photography jobs to cover the shortfall. The problem was that Maribel's photography career was built on connections she'd made through me and our stable married life. Her biggest client was the Regional Chamber of Commerce, who hired her for corporate events and promotional materials because they knew she was reliable, professional, and married to a respectable aircraft mechanic. Now that word was getting around about her affair and our separation, those connections were drying up faster than spilled hydraulic fluid on hot tarmac. I may have helped that process along. When the Chamber of Commerce president, Jim Hartley, called to ask if Maribel was available for their annual dinner photography, I was honest with him. Jim, I have to tell you that Maribel and I are separated. She's been living with another man for over a year now. I can't vouch for her reliability or professionalism anymore. Oh, I had no idea. Thanks for letting me know, Grant. That conversation cost Maribel a $1,500 job and her reputation with the Chamber's network of business contacts. I felt a little bad about it, for about 30 seconds. The next week, Ty made his own contribution to their downward spiral. He got drunk at Murphy's bar and started bragging about stealing Grant Hensley's wife and how some guys just can't keep their women satisfied. Wrong bar, Wrong audience. Murphy's was where half the airport crew drank after work. These were guys who'd known me for years, who respected my work ethic and my character. They didn't appreciate some punk kid talking trash about their friend. Frank was there when it happened. He called me the next morning with a full report. "Kid's got a big mouth and a glass jaw," Frank said. After about 10 minutes of his bragging, Tommy Kowalski had heard enough. He walked over and suggested that Ty might want to find a different bar for his victory celebration. And? Kid got mouthy with Tommy. Big mistake. Tommy used to box in the army. One punch, and your wife's boyfriend was on the floor seeing stars. Anyone call the police? Nah. Tommy just helped him to his feet and escorted him outside. Very professional. But word is, the kid's been banned from Murphy's, and you know how these things spread. I knew. By the end of the week, Ty would be persona non grata at half the bars in town. His music career, such as it was, would suffer accordingly. Meanwhile, I was documenting everything for my divorce attorney. Every financial transaction, every witness statement, every piece of evidence that showed Maribel had abandoned our marriage for another man. My lawyer, Patricia Chen, was impressed with my thoroughness. "Most guys come in here with nothing but hurt feelings and wishful thinking," she said during our consultation. "You've built a case that would make a prosecutor jealous. I believe in being prepared." "Good, because your wife's attorney is going to argue that she deserves half of everything, including your pension and the house." "Based on what?" 22 years of marriage. That carries weight, regardless of infidelity. "And my evidence?" "Your evidence proves abandonment, adultery, and financial irresponsibility. In this state, that matters. A lot." Patricia filed the papers on a Thursday. Maribel was served at Ty's apartment on Friday afternoon in front of half his neighbors and his bandmates who were there for practice. According to Vicky, who heard it from her cousin who lived 2 blocks away, Maribel screamed at the process server for 5 minutes before slamming the door. Then she called me. I didn't answer. She called 6 more times over the weekend. I didn't answer those either. On Monday, she showed up at the airport. Big mistake. Airport security doesn't mess around, especially when dealing with someone who's clearly unstable and trying to access restricted areas without proper authorization. When Maribel showed up demanding to see me, she made the mistake of pushing past the gate guard and heading toward the maintenance hangar. She made it about 50 yards before 2 security officers intercepted her. I was working on a Cessna engine when my supervisor, Dave Martinez, found me. "Grant, there's a woman out front claiming to be your wife. Security's got her, but she's making a scene." Through the hangar window, I could see Maribel gesticulating wildly while talking to the security officers. Several other mechanics had stopped working to watch the show. "That's my wife," I confirmed. "Soon-to-be ex-wife. Want me to have them escort her off the property?" "Give me 5 minutes to talk to her. If she doesn't leave voluntarily, then yes." I walked out to where Maribel was standing between 2 very patient but very alert security officers. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, and her artistic wardrobe was wrinkled and stained. "Hello, Maribel." "Grant, thank God. Tell these men who I am." "You're my estranged wife who's been living with another man for over a year and who just served me with divorce papers." The security officers exchanged glances. One of them, a former cop named Pete Williams, gave me a sympathetic look. "Ma'am, you can't be on airport property without proper authorization," Pete said. "This is a secure area." "I need to talk to my husband." "Then call him," I suggested. "Like a normal person." "You haven't been answering my calls." "Because I don't want to talk to you." She turned to the security officers as if they could somehow force me to have a conversation with her. "This is ridiculous. We're married." "Ma'am," Pete said patiently, "being married doesn't give you access to restricted areas. You need to leave now, or we'll have to call the police." "Fine," she snapped. "But this isn't over, Grant." "Actually, it is over. Patricia Chen filed the papers on Thursday. You should probably get a lawyer." She stalked back to her car, and Pete watched her drive away before turning to me. Sorry about that, Grant. Divorce is rough. Thanks, Pete. I appreciate you handling it professionally. Word of Maribel's airport meltdown spread through our social circle faster than a fuel leak spreads through an engine compartment. By evening, I had 3 different versions of the story from 3 different sources, each one more embarrassing for Maribel than the last. The best part was that Ty wasn't there to support her through the humiliation. According to Vicky's intelligence network, he'd taken off for a gig in Chicago the day after the divorce papers were served, leaving Maribel to deal with the legal and social fallout alone. Nina and I were having dinner at her apartment when my brother Al called. "Mom wants to know if you're okay," he said. Apparently Mrs. Knox called her again, crying about how you're destroying Maribel's life. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not fixing it anymore. Good for you. Mom said to tell you that Mrs. Knox can cry all she wants, but adultery is adultery, and actions have consequences. Mom always was smarter than she let on. She also said to bring Nina to Sunday dinner this week. She wants to meet the woman who's making you smile again. After I hung up, Nina looked at me with raised eyebrows. Your mother wants to meet me? Fair warning, she's going to love you. She's been waiting 23 years for me to find someone who doesn't think I'm boring. You're not boring. You're steady. There's a difference. Try telling that to Maribel. I don't need to tell Maribel anything. She's figuring out the difference between steady and boring all by herself. Nina was right. Maribel was learning the hard way that stability isn't the same as stagnation, and reliability isn't the same as predictability. She'd thrown away 22 years of marriage for a few months of excitement, and now she was discovering what life looked like without a safety net. But I wasn't done teaching her that lesson yet. The next morning, I called Jim Hartley at the Chamber of Commerce. Jim, it's Grant Hensley. I wanted to follow up on our conversation about Maribel. Oh, hi, Grant. Yeah, we decided to go with someone else for our photography needs. Good choice. But I wanted to let you know that she's been telling people you fired her because of personal bias, not professional concerns. She's what? Just thought you should know, in case it gets back to you through other channels. Jim was quiet for a moment. Thanks for the heads up, Grant. I'll make sure to set the record straight if anyone asks. That conversation would cost Maribel any chance of working with the Chamber's network again. Word would spread that she was bad-mouthing former clients, and in a small business community, that kind of reputation was toxic. My phone rang an hour later. Maribel. This time, I answered. You bastard, she said without preamble. Hello to you too. You're sabotaging my career. I'm protecting my reputation. There's a difference. Jim Hartley called me. He said I was spreading lies about the Chamber. Were you? Silence. Maribel, you made your choice. You chose Ty over me, excitement over stability, passion over partnership. Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. Several of them. But the biggest mistake was thinking you could come back and pick up where you left off whenever you got tired of your new life. What do you want from me? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's the point. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the first time in 14 months, I felt completely at peace. But Maribel wasn't done fighting yet. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in March, exactly 2 months after I'd filed for divorce. I was at Nina's apartment when my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, called to tell me someone was trying to break into my house. I can see her from my kitchen window, Mrs. Patterson said. She's trying to pry open the back door with something that looks like a crowbar. Did you call the police? I called you first. Figured you might want to handle this yourself. I thanked Mrs. Patterson and headed home, with Nina insisting on coming along despite my protests. If she's desperate enough to break into your house, she might be desperate enough to do something really stupid, Nina said. You need backup. We arrived to find Maribel's car in my driveway and my back door hanging open. I could hear her moving around inside, probably looking for valuables she could claim or documents she could use against me in the divorce. "Stay here," I told Nina. "Call the police if this goes bad." Define bad. If you hear screaming, furniture breaking, or gunshots. That's not reassuring. I walked through my back door and found Maribel in my home office, rifling through my filing cabinet. She'd made a mess of the place. Papers scattered everywhere, drawers pulled out, books knocked off shelves. "Find anything interesting?" She spun around, clutching a folder full of bank statements. "These are joint accounts. I have a right to this information." "You had a right. Past tense. You gave up that right when you moved in with Ty. A judge will see it differently. A judge will see that you broke into my house and tried to steal financial documents. That's called burglary, Maribel." She threw the folder at me, scattering papers across the floor. "You've turned everyone against me. My clients, my friends, even my own mother. I didn't turn anyone against you. I just stopped covering for you." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that for 22 years, I made excuses for your behavior. When you were late to events, I said you were being perfectionist about your appearance. When you were rude to my friends, I said you were having a bad day. When you spent money we didn't have, I worked overtime to cover the shortfall." I stepped closer, and she backed against the filing cabinet. "I was your safety net, your excuse maker, your financial backup plan. I made you look good, and you took all the credit." "That's not true." "Isn't it? When's the last time you balanced a checkbook, filed a tax return, made a mortgage payment? You never had to learn how to be a responsible adult because I was always there to clean up your messes." Her face was red with anger and embarrassment. "I don't have to listen to this." "No, you don't. You can leave any time, through the front door this time preferably." Instead, she grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from my desk and threw it at my head. I ducked, and it smashed against the wall behind me. "Feel better?" I asked. She grabbed another object, a framed photo of us from our wedding day, and hurled it at me. This time I caught it, looked at the picture of our younger, happier selves, and set it gently on the desk. "We were good together once," she said, breathing hard. "We were, but that was a long time ago, and those people don't exist anymore." "They could exist again." "No, they can't. Too much has happened. Too many lies, too much betrayal, too much damage." She slumped against the filing cabinet, finally understanding that this wasn't a negotiation or a temporary setback. This was the end. "What happens now?" "Now you leave my house, and we let the lawyers handle the rest." "And then what? You live happily ever after with your nurse while I lose everything?" "You didn't lose everything, Maribel. You threw it away. There's a difference." She walked past me toward the front door, then stopped and turned back. "I loved you, you know. I still do." "No, you don't. You love the idea of me, the security I represented, the life we had together. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 6 months lying to my face while you screwed around with a kid who can't even pay his own rent." She opened the front door, then paused again. "You're going to regret this." "The only thing I regret is not ending this sooner." She left without another word. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for several minutes, probably crying or trying to figure out her next move. Finally, she drove away. Nina came in through the back door, stepping carefully around the broken glass and scattered papers. "How do you feel?" "Like I just completed the most complex engine overhaul of my career." "And?" "And everything's running perfectly now." 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Maribel got half the value of our house, but she had to sell her half to me because she couldn't afford the mortgage payments. She got half of our savings, but that wasn't much after paying legal fees and covering the debts she'd accumulated during her bohemian phase. Ty had disappeared entirely, probably off to find another woman to support his artistic dreams. Maribel moved back in with her mother and took a job at a portrait studio in the mall, photographing families and high school seniors for minimum wage plus commission. I kept the house, my pension, and my dignity. Most importantly, I kept Nina, who understood that love isn't about passion and drama and artistic temperament. Love is about showing up every day and choosing to build something together instead of tearing it down. On our wedding day, 18 months later, my brother Al gave a toast that summed it up perfectly. Grant always was good at fixing things that were worth fixing and letting go of things that weren't. Here's to Nina, who was definitely worth fixing up with. Sometimes the only way to soar is to cut loose the extra weight.